In an ongoing effort to improve relationships between police and the community, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock held a community forum today. It was one of several in a series of what's being called a Race and Justice Summit.
For those of you who may not remember the mayor last week talking about these great race and justice summits that he was going to be having, let me give you a brief reminder.
I saw the best of this Denver spirit just last weekend at our Race and Justice Summit. We had people from all walks of life addressing very real issues head on. The common theme my administration has heard from attendees at this summit, as well as from dozens of diverse community meetings, is the need to develop better relationships between our officers and our neighbors.
Okay, so let's stop right there just for a second, right? The reason why I'm focusing on Denver, besides it being my city of birth and my hometown, is because Denver's what I like to consider the miner's canary when it comes to race relations. And the reason why I consider it such is because Denver's demographics almost perfectly mirrors the demographic of the greater United States, right? Denver, Colorado is that perfect mix of it all, right? The same percentages. They say nationwide there's 12% African Americans in the United States. There's 12% of African Americans in Denver. So I love examining the racial game that they run in Denver because it's generally a prelude to what is going to take place or what they're going to try to create the tenor for nationwide. So with that said, right, let us take a look at what that really was.
9 News reporter Ryan Hare was there today when police tried to put the public into their shoes.
So you look suspicious driving around. Are you lost?
Boss. Officer Tyrone Campbell has been with DPD for 25 years. Today, he's doing the same drill with the public he normally does with trainees. Campbell says for too long, police and the public have been having a separate conversation.
And by getting the two groups together in a single place and having those discussions, it gives us a chance to actually have meaningful dialogue. Why's your hand on your gun?
Volunteers act as police officers on traffic stops, the goal to show how quickly things can escalate.
I think a citizen's assumption when they're approached by an officer is, uh-oh, he thinks I'm doing something wrong.
Happy Haynes is the president of the Board of Education for Denver Schools. She's describing what she feels is a clear disconnect between police and the public. Traffic stops, for example, she feels are often one-way conversations.
I've never had like a bad altercation with an officer because my parents taught me just do like what you're supposed to do because they're here to help you.
Okay, so you see how insidious that is, right? This young 14-year-old dark brown young man is being indoctrinated with the idea that if he just does what officers tell him to do, that everything will be okay. And how he's framing this in his mind subconsciously is that those that are abused, those that are killed by police officers must have been in the wrong, must have been guilty of not adhering to authority.
14-year-old Ezekiel Quattlebaum says profiling certain ethnicities will take time to get rid of, but he says there is something we can all do to limit negative outcomes sometimes associated with police encounters.
Act how you would act as if you were talking to a pastor, like, or your parent, because they are in authority. Like it is their right and their job to ask questions.
Okay, so what's wrong with the way he's dressed?
Respect.
Respond with respect. Maybe don't make the assumption that the officer is after you.
If police and the community can truly have respect for each other, then maybe there is hope for a more peaceful future.
And if they're treating you with dignity and respect, it doesn't matter what cultural background you come from.
In Denver, Ryan Hare, 9 News.
I want you to simply consider this.
60% of the 800,000 domestic violence charges every year are filed against police officers. Let me say that again.
Wow. 60% come from police officers. Police violence is taken home. So who's the issue then? I want you to imagine the mayor of Denver then creating a forum. And at that forum on domestic violence, what you would have is the women who were the victims of domestic violence playing the role of the police officer, having a forum where the women then get on the microphone and they play out scenarios where they are putting themselves in the shoes of the victimizer. Could you imagine that happening? Can you imagine the uproar that would take place if we were going to address the problem of domestic violence done by police officers by having the women who are the victims of the police officer attend a forum, and in that forum they're taught that their husbands and boyfriends are the authority. They do role play where they have to somehow capitulate to the hard role that their husbands do in order to bring down the confusion that takes place inside of their home. Could you imagine that? But that's the audacity they're trying to run on the public with these type of forums. And that's why I think they're disingenuous. And that's why I think that the politicians that promote them are being disingenuous. And that's why Baltimore is not going to be the last one that it happens. Because the real issue is not being addressed. And that is policing as it's done and as it's practiced in its current form is an antiquated idea that no longer is in alignment with the social and spiritual aspirations of the public in which they serve. Simple. It's a dead animal.
And there were several breakout sessions at the forum today that covered topics like knowing your rights and bridging the communication gap.